Hi, animation class. This is Mr. Juarez. We are moving on to lesson 3 in our series of animation tutorials. And of course, I wanted to take this time to show you something that I created within Animate. And again, just using specifically Animate and all the tools that were afforded to me now. We've covered the sound unit in this class. I haven't really shown you how to put it all together, but that comes hopefully at the end of next month, right before your project, where we take this file into Premiere and we basically add sound to it. Okay, and so here is the animation that I created called the Fly Guy, or the Incredible Fly Guy. All right, I'll show you guys this little animation now.
Oh, I sure am hungry. I wonder what I want to eat. A sandwich. Oh yes. Let me see what's in the refrigerator. Alright. Let's get this going. Let me see. I've got the bread, the mayo, lettuce, tomato. Alright, let's get to work. Here's some bologna. Alright.
Bologna. I love bologna.
What the? I see you. Okay. Let's see. Tracking. Get close. Get close. Ha. Wait. Here we go. Ah. Okay, where did it go? Can't seem to find it. Is he over there? Let me see. I'm looking. Oh well. Might as well just eat. There we go. Man, I sure am hungry. Let me take a big bite of this. I don't feel so good. What the? What's that? Huh? Oh, man. Ooh.
All right. So you can see how I've used symbols. I used different elements within Animate to create this animation, right? And of course, that was my sound. There's a lot of sound effects. That was both the sound of the guy and the fly, right? And so, I got creative, and it was a fun project to do. It took a lot of time, obviously, if you want to do, and again, a lot of you are better artists than I am, but you're able to see the power of Animate and how you can use fonts, and you can use a text tool, and you can use shading, and you can use all of these different elements to create a story. And now I'm not as artistic as a lot of you. So, this is kind of a basic animation that I came up with. But I want to also illustrate the power of the story, right? The story, this being where a fly gets some sort of chemical reaction with super mayonnaise, and all of a sudden a guy bites into it and swallows the fly and automatically becomes part of the fly, which is partly inspired by the movie The Fly, right? But the reality is I've taken some of those elements and brought it in and created a little short story, which again, I will say this with all of your script treatments and all of your ideas all come into play when you put everything together, right, with camera shots, and at the end result is something to be proud of. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of practice. Obviously, I don't animate as much as I would like to because I'm teaching. That's my job. But if I was an animator, my animations obviously would be a lot better. Again, I would really focus a lot on the story. That said, let's move on to our tutorial on the actual moving of all of your elements. Since you've already created your art, let's focus on getting their art and moving your art around, right? And getting things in the right spot. Again, so let me go ahead and I will flip over and we'll start the tutorial. All right, my animation students, welcome back. So now we will start working on the actual animation, right? The movement of all our elements, specifically symbols. We talked about symbols in the previous lesson. And so now we're actually going to animate using our timeline. And I spoke a little bit about this. Again, we touched on it on lesson 1 and we touched on it in lesson 2, but now we're actually focusing in on the movement of your animation. So you've created some amazing graphic work and some amazing artwork just using Animate. Now we're going to take it to the next level, use some of that. And if you haven't already figured it out, some of the artwork that you used in lesson 2, you're going to animate in a project in lesson 3. I know, I didn't tell you, but you are going to be moving things around that you've already created. So we're going to do this step by step. We'll learn about it, then we'll do the project. All right, so let's go ahead and focus up on this, right? So I'm going to go to documents, and you're going to go to your folder, wherever your folder is at, right? And you're going to go to wherever your animation's at, where you have your list of folders here. Remember, we have our list of folders. We've already done lesson 1, lesson 2. You should know where it's at. Those of you at home, it's going to be in your U drive, right? Because we already went through those lessons back in February 24th, I believe. In our Canvas was where I walked you through the whole process on how to use those and to do the tutorials online from your Chromebook. So for those of us here, you're going to go open up your lesson 3, and we're going to go open up your start file, 03 start f.fla. You're going to open that file up. Okay, and it's going to bring you to something like this. All right, and this is basically our starting point where we have some elements already prepared for us, right? Because again, we don't need to create things. We're actually going to be just animating. Our focus in this particular unit or this particular lesson is going to be focused around the movement. So we're not actually going to be drawing or creating anything. We're just going to be moving things around and how they move in Animate. And then for the projects, I'll let you guys use your own. All right, so for right here on this particular, let me go ahead and center this. For this particular lesson, they started with a couple of pieces already animated. Down here, you can look at the keyframes and you'll know about what all that means. But we're really trying to get to here at the end of our lesson. This is what it's going to look like. And I'm going to play this for you in our test movie so that you can see what the end result's going to be. So you see the city moving, you see cars coming up, you see people blurred in the background, you see the title switch around, and then of course, it loops. All right, and then I want you to notice that the cars are moving, like if the engine was on and it's kind of moving the cars. So that is our end goal, and to get there, we're going to start with just our elements, just our beginning elements, so that we can move these things around. And if you look down at the timeline, you're going to see some gold-looking timelines and some grayed-out timelines, and I'm going to explain that for you in a minute. So. And this graphic should pop up, and I want you to notice that we are going to be working on these things in this lesson. You're going to animate the position, scale, and rotation of objects using motion tweening. You're also going to adjust the pacing and timing of your animation, right? You're going to animate transparency and filters. You're going to change the path of an object's motion. You're going to create a nested animation. You're going to do a split or you're going to split a motion tween, and you'll know what that means. If it's kind of getting kind of really academic as far as the language, don't worry. You're going to catch up to it as soon as we get through the tutorial. You'll know what it means. You're also going to change the easing of an object's motion, and then you're going to animate in a 3-dimensional space. All right. So let's get to it. So we're already here. We've already opened up our file. All right, and once we're here and you start, the very first thing we want to do is, okay, we're going to hit File, right? We're going to hit File. We're going to Save As, right? And you're going to you're going to title this Lesson 3, or it should be 03 Start. You're going to basically 03 Lesson 03. And you're gonna do working copy. All right, working copy. And today is going to be a lot of just making sure we're having everything in the right spot. So and I'll take away that 03 right there. Lesson 03 working copy. All right. So that's how you're going to save it. Again, you can save it in your 03 start folder, what you just opened up. We're just replacing this so that if we mess up, we can always have a good place to start. So we're going to save this. So lesson 03 working copy. Okay. And then now this is my lesson 3 working copy. All right. So we've got all that worked out. You should be at this point. And right now I'm just going to read you what's important in this tutorial. All right. So this is going to be me reading you what's going on. So again, about animation in general, right? And we know this from the first semester. Animation is movement or a change of objects through time. Animation can be as simple as moving a ball across the stage from one frame to the next frame. It can also be much more complex. As you'll see in this lesson, you can animate many different aspects in a single object. You can change an object's position on the stage, change its color or transparency, change its size or rotation, or animate the filters that you saw in the previous lesson. You also have control of an object's path of motion and even its easing, and we'll get into that in a minute, which is the way the object accelerates or decelerates, okay, depending on where it is in the location. And we use this to give things weight. We use this effect called easing. So if something is heavy, it moves in a certain way. And I'll get more specific once we get to that part of the tutorial. But again, you understand this because of our previous semester's work, right? You understand how the persistence of vision works. And this is a clear indication of we're taking that and bringing it into the digital world. All right. So again, in Animate, the basic workflow for animation goes like this. And I'm going to stop real quick. When we were creating graphics, and again, I had you focus on the workflow where we select one of our tools, then we come to our properties panel, do some adjustments here, and then we work with a layer, open a layer. It was a circular motion. And I told you that we were going to work on a different type of workflow when we got into this timeline down here. And this is what we're talking about. We're going to select an object, okay, something here. That's going to be our workflow. We're going to select an object, and then on the stage, then we're going to choose a motion tween above the timeline, right? And then we'll move the playhead in a different direction down here, and we'll we'll play with it, and we'll move things around, right? So I want you to understand. So a lot of it's going to be selecting the object, then motion tweening. Instead of over here selecting a tool and going to the selecting the tool and then going over here to the properties panel, you'll be selecting a object, and then you'll be coming down and you'll be working with the layers for movement. So there's a different workflow. So you'll be up and down in layers. So you'll be using this motion a lot, right, within this little tiny area. Just understand that's kind of, you're not having to go everywhere. And if you can get that through your head, as far as workflows when you're creating versus animating in Animate, then it gets you a little more focused. It gives you a great path of a system to kind of look forward to. So you know you're going to be working in this kind of circular motion in Animate. Okay. And so that's what we need to talk about. Also, motion tweens are the way we create Animate. Okay. For changes in position on the stage and for size, color, attributes, all that is and you're gonna hear that word a lot, tweens, right? To do the tweens, to actually move things around, they have to be converted into a symbol. And we talked about symbols when we created our symbols in Animate, when we created that cup and we put the cup in our library, right? We have a lot more in this lesson, all right? We have a lot more symbols and bitmaps. But when we bring in pictures, like obviously this was not created in Animate, we actually have to convert these pictures into symbols as well. So again, in this lesson, you don't necessarily have to have any art background. You have to just understand aesthetics and movement, because Animate, and I've said this before, it's about animation, but also if you can create, if you know how to draw and you're really well versed and you're practiced in art and drawing and perspective and all of those techniques, you're going to get the most out of this program. But even if you're not, the moving of it, just understanding how things get placed and moved, anyone can do it. We can bring in resources from outside of Animate, obviously online. So Animate also separates everything by layers. So we want to make sure everything is layers. So because we want motion to mirror real life. And in real life, we are all independent creatures. All of the things around us in nature are all independent. And the only way to really control every aspect of what you can control, we need every symbol on its own layer. All right. So when you're animating different things, it gives it a realistic look, especially if you're moving things from left to right, up and down, transparency, opacity, in and out. All of these elements, we need to have them on different layers so that we're not affecting the same things. In other words, so not everything moves to the left at the same time or right at the same time if we don't want them to, right? And so we need to have them. So obviously I'm going to show you, if you look at the stage, we want the cars to come in, and then we want some light to come up on the side. We want some different things to happen. We want those two people to come in, one from the left, one from the right. And that's only possible if they're on different layers. Because again, every piece of that object or every piece of that symbol has to be animated differently. All right. So I want to talk about tweens for a second, right? Well, before I do that, you can animate lots of different things. We can start, for example, if there's a spaceship coming from far away and it's tiny, and all of a sudden, as it moves from left to right, when it gets to the right side, it's really big. It gives the illusion of distance coming forward and proximity. So you can actually do a lot of these things with keyframes as you're animating. So just keep that in mind. Opacity is a good one, right? To fade in, fade out, those different tricks. But so is positioning and size, scale, all of those things. We'll work with those, so don't worry. I know I'm talking fast in this tutorial. You can slow me down, right? Or you can watch this again if you need a little more understanding. But I just want you to. This is a general overview of this animation lesson before we actually start tweaking little things. You need to understand what we're doing before you actually start tweaking it. All right. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the term tween. You're going to hear that word tween, and if you're working in your Animate timeline, and you right click, you're going to see keyframes, you're going to see tweens, you're going to see all these different words, right? And tween actually comes from the world of classic animation, right? So senior animators will be responsible for drawing the beginning and ending poses of their characters, and the beginning and the ending poses were called keyframes. So if we had, let's just say Mickey Mouse, and I'll use Mickey Mouse because he's almost out of he's almost in the public domain. They would draw the first part of Mickey Mouse's. Let's just say he's going to run a sprint where he's starting at the starting line, and all of a sudden it shows him running at the last one. So he's in a full sprint on the last one. Basically, a senior animator would create the first frame. Right? Think of your flip book. They would create the first frame, and the senior animator would create the last frame, and those are called keyframes. Those two, right? And so basically a junior animator, if let's just say you got hired, and a lot of you who are going into animation will be a junior animator working under senior animators, they would actually have to do the hard work like you did for the flip book last semester, right? They would basically come up with everything in between the first and second. So they would have to draw all those frames. And if Mickey Mouse was running for, let's just say 3 seconds, they would have to, let's just say, and it's a 30 frames per second, right? That's 90 frames minus 2, which would be 88 different frames that the junior animator had to hand draw. Okay. You don't have to hand draw anything, right? And I made you guys do basically almost, a couple of seconds or really 1 second of a flip book. Right, well, that's what we're talking about. So this term tween, in between, is from classic animation. So instead of having you will be the senior animators for these projects, and the junior animator is actually Adobe Animate, and Adobe Animate's going to do all of those in between frames for you, right? And that's where the word tween comes from. They just dropped the in between, and then they just left with tween. So now it's the world of tweening. So you're going to hear that a lot, tweening. And so if you hear that in other programs, and you're going to hear it a lot in this class, that's what it means. That's where it comes from. It comes from the world of classic animation, which is why you're going to go up a level, right? We did a lot of those classic animations during the first part of the semester, or the first semester, right? So let's continue. All of that explanation. I know you guys are dying to start moving things around. So let's go. All right. So understanding the file project. All right. So right now we have 6 layers here on the side. All right. We have man. All right. We have man, woman. We have a man and a woman, right? Then we also have middle car, this one, and then right car over here, right? And then we also have, footer and ground, right? So we have footer right here and ground. So we have all these layers on the side. I'll let you show I'll show these. Middle car, right car, and of course they're in folders. We did these last, I think in lesson 1. So they put them in folders. So you have the cars, the actors, man and woman, footer. Again, being organized goes a long way here. So we've got all of these layers. So right now what I want to do is we're going to actually animate a position, right? So let's go ahead. We're going to start adding. Now let's get to work. So we're going to go ahead and add a layer. All right. We're going to add a layer right above the footer layer. So click the footer layer here, and then just hit the plus sign to add a new layer. And we're gonna rename that layer city. Right. Boom. So we have a new layer, and I want you to notice that there's a little icon. It has like a little layer, like a little page. And the icons on the rest of these layers right next to their titles, they have like these diamonds on it, okay? And that's just to show you that they are different, right? You don't need to know specific what they are right now. I'm going to explain it, but they're different. So you have the city there, all right? Now that we have the city there, we're going to come up to our library up here, okay? And we're going to click on the library, and the library has a folder called bitmaps. If it's closed, you can open it, right? By clicking on this little arrow right here, right? Bitmaps. And you're going to look for the city BG. And when you click on it, you'll see the preview here, just like we normally did, right? When you click on this, you're going to see the preview come up. And that's the city skyline, all right? And we're going to be dragging that to the stage, right? We're going to drag this city skyline to the stage. So just grab it and drop it in. And I dropped it in, all right? And just position it everywhere. I'm gonna line it up with that white line on the right, on the left hand side. I'm not gonna get too specific because we're actually gonna fine tune it right now. So from the library up here, we're gonna click over to the properties panel just right next door to it. Click on our city, right? And here under position and size, there's an X here, which is 0, right? And that's where we want it. And our Y, we want it at 90 though. We want it a little lower. So 90, right? Or a little higher, perhaps. So here you go. So this is where you go. So again, understanding how the properties work, this needs to be selected. So your city layer needs to be there. You need to see the outline in blue before you can actually start seeing the position and size. If you don't click on it, you're going to see all of this other information in your properties panel, and a lot of that is just the stage, right? So if you want to see the X and Y, you have to click on the actual object, and then of course in the properties panel you get the X and Y, 0 and 90. All right, so we're gonna move this really quick. I'm gonna want this city to kind of move up in a really cool way, right? So it's 0 and 90, and then this now what we're going to do, we're going to select it again. We're going to select the object, which is the cityscape image. And we're going to create a motion tween, right? There's that word again, tween, motion in between, tween. So we're going to, we're basically going to go to the right above the timeline and click choose motion tween or insert motion tween, right? And so basically it's these little tiny two triangles, I guess, right? And that's center frame, and this one, it should be classic tween. We're going to create motion tween, so it's nested inside, just like the special tools. So you'll click right here. I'm going to cancel this for a second. Make sure your city is selected, your cityscape is selected, and right here above the timeline, under these two, you're going to hold this down, click and hold, and then you're going to look at create motion tween. You see that? All right, and you'll click motion tween, and then you're going to get this dialog box. And the dialog box basically says this selected item cannot be tweened. You must convert this to a symbol in order to tween it. All right. Do you want to convert and create a tween? And our answer to this is always going to be yes, we do. Remember, we have to have it the symbol, and right now it's a bitmap. It's a picture. Perhaps we brought it in from Google Images, right? And hit OK. You have to do this step. You have to convert it to a format that Animate will be able to understand it and move around. And that is called a tween, right? A motion tween. And now if you look over here by the city, the symbol is all the same. And that's a symbol for motion tween. So it's ready. In other words, it's telling you, I am ready to be animated, right? You're going to animate this particular object, right? Which is no longer a straight object. It's now a symbol. Right? And a symbol are always in our libraries, right? And again, there's your symbol 1. And we can rename it, but I'm not going to go there yet. All right. So we selected the symbol, all right. And so now it automatically converts it to a symbol, right? Stores it into the library, and it's in your twin, your library tweens, right? Your symbols. So if you scroll all the way to the end, right, of your city, you're going to notice that down here, right? Actually, I'm going to click on it right there. It has a little diamond, black diamond. It's really small, all right? It's really tiny, but it's there, right? It's almost like a spot there. And that's basically letting you know that there is movement. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to move this. So we're going to move our playhead, this blue playhead here, right, all the way to this keyframe. Remember I said the beginning and the end are keyframes. So there's that little black dot right there, all right? And so there's our little black dot, and it's going to be at area 191. That's going to be 191 frames, right? Imagine having to draw 191 frames. That's crazy, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to move this. We're going to select this instance of the city right here, right? And what we want to do now, right? You can either hold shift and drag it up, or we want to be precise. Like I want to be precise. You're going to go, since it's selected, I'm going to come over here to the object, to the properties panel up here, and make sure that this is selected again. Make sure cityscape is selected, and you're going to go to the Y coordinate. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to enter 0, right? Boom. As soon as I hit 0 and enter, again, 0 under the Y coordinates, you're going to see a line, right? And you can see it here. You can see this line, and it has all of these little line made of dots. All those dots are different little frames. Think of them as little cards from your flip book, and they're all stacked, right? And what they are is that they're all motion frames, motion tweens that have already been created. Your junior animator is so good, with one click of a button, they've already, or actually 2 clicks, because you had to set up your playhead here, your blue, and then you had to change a movement somewhere, and they've already created the stack of all of those cards. They've already created it for you. So there's already movement here. And if you want to check that, all you have to do is you can just click the playhead, and you can drag it all the way to the beginning. And I'm going to lock everything out. Actually, I'm not going to lock everything out. I'm going to eyeball everything out. So it's just the city. Right? And then I'm going to run the playhead across, and you can see how it's moving up through the course of all 191 frames. Your junior animator created all of those, and all you had to do is the first keyframe, we brought the symbol in from the library, right? We brought it in, and that made this first we made this keyframe, and then we brought it in, we made this first keyframe, and we converted it, and then we positioned it. Right. Then we moved the playhead to the last keyframe, and then we moved our object around. So it's really that simple, where you just grab one object, where you have a starting position of your object over here, right, at the beginning, and then once it's a motion tween, anytime you move the playhead, and again, if we were to grab the object and move it to the side, it would create like a jagged motion. So it's pretty much a couple of steps to create motion, all right? Once you have your motion tween in. The beginning, you have to have a beginning start where you want the keyframe to start, where you want your object to start, and the end position. And don't worry about what's in between, because your junior animator, which is Animate, will make everything in between. All right. And of course, that's how we preview it. We can set it all the way to the back, and I can just hit play up here if I don't want to scroll, and I can just enjoy it in real time, how watching the city move up, all right, slowly and perfectly and smoothly, all right. So you're not having, it's not a jagged or weird thing. It's a smooth, almost. It's beautiful, right? As far as if you've ever try to get a smooth transition by a handheld camera, you know that's pretty tough, right? So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to view everything now, right? And now I'm going to start with the cityscape, and I'm just going to hit play, and everything's going to join us. The two pictures, while the city's rising, the cars come up, right? And then, of course, it's waiting for us to build the rest because we still have a little bit more to go. So that's where you need to be at today. That's our part A lesson. Hopefully this is where we're going to stop. I want you to kind of really get to this point, be comfortable with where you're at in tweening, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. You guys, we will pick this up tomorrow, or I'm sorry, we'll pick this up when we meet again. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. If it's the weekend, and this is a future date for you, it'll be on our next lesson. We'll continue on with adding more objects and making things move around in Animate. Guys, you have a great day.